Welcome to the Holdo Maneuver podcast, part of the Geek So to Speak network. I'm Mark.
And I'm Vactor. We're two hardworking dads trying to immerse ourselves in Star Wars and fit it into our very busy lives.
If this is your first time listening in the short-form Star Wars podcast, each week we'll share our thoughts on different topics from a galaxy far, far away. Hey Vactor, when Luke joined Red Squadron, everyone played a prank on him. Do you know what it was?
I do not. What was it?
He got a Biggs wedgie.
Oh!
Alright everybody, so in this third episode of the Holdo Maneuver podcast, we are going to be talking about the Disney Plus animated anthology series, which was created for, like I said, Disney Plus. It's produced by Lucasfilm Animation, and the series consists of 9 short films produced by 7 Japanese animation studios, each telling their own original stories based on and set within the Star Wars universe. It is called Star Wars Visions.
Yes.
And Sylvie enjoys it as well. Sylvie, my puppy.
Yeah.
So, what was your first kind of thought when you heard about the show being produced?
Just mass elation. Combining anime with Star Wars. I said, what could be better than this? Because there have been a ton of fan-made animes over the years. We even saw with the Star Wars Kids little shorts that they did where they took the actual movie audio and then they did anime over it. That gave me a taste, and I was like, I want more of this. But that was never like an official thing. It was just kind of promoting, each one of the movies. And when I heard about this, an official Star Wars anime, I said, I cannot wait until this happens. So I was highly anticipating this for months.
For a moment there, I didn't think you said mass elation. I thought you said that you were a master at debating things. Yeah.
Keep this kid friendly.
No E for here. It's just E for everyone. But so when this came out back in September, I know that you watched it all right away.
And they released it all at once.
Yeah. A little peek behind the curtain really quick. Sylvie, my puppy, is really wanting to get in here while we're recording.
She wants to be on the show. Yeah,
she does. Sylvie, this is a Lucasfilm podcast, not a Marvel podcast. but anyways, yeah. I back in September watched about half of it at that point, and I just recently watched the other half this past week in preparation for the rest of this episode. So when you were watching it, do you want to just go through, I guess, episode by episode and we can kind of talk about it that way?
Yeah. I actually specifically watched it in English on my first try, and I said, oh yeah, I'll go back and watch it in Japanese. But as you know, we are two very busy fathers, and I have not had a chance to go back and watch it in Japanese. But I liked, like I said, Star Wars plus anime, so I couldn't be more excited. So yeah, I think going through it just in chronological order will be the best way to do it.
Okay, sounds good, sir. So, and then like as you had said too, like my son calls it, or I always ask subbed or dubbed.
Yeah.
And he wanted to watch it subbed rather than dubbed.
Nice.
I watched it in the English version as well. And kind of the same way like when they dubbed the Studio Ghibli films, where they try to get kind of a English voice speaking cast that's recognizable. Mm-hmm. A bunch of these episodes do have different people that we may have heard of. So starting from this first episode, the Duel, this one was the most like the very thing that more or less kind of was one of the things that inspired Star Wars to begin with, like Akira Kurosawa films.
Yeah.
So this was basically Akira Kurosawa mixed with Star Wars. So you basically had samurai swords that were lightsabers.
Yes.
And this one, I'm trying to see. I don't. Lucy Liu was one of the voices for the English voice speaking cast on here of people's names that I recognize. And this one was set kind of like an alternate history 20 years after a war between feudal Jedi Empire and a renegade Jedi. So this basically would just be like if you'd say like watched like Yojimbo or any of Kurosawa's films and just basically swapped out Star Wars kind of speak and
Right.
Star Wars weapons for what would have been like in feudal Japan.
Right. And this one
And-
had the black
Go
and
ahead.
white, right?
Yeah, this one was black and white mixed with the like the color for specifically kind of like the lightsabers. So it was kind of like the Frank Miller Sin City, Robert Rodriguez in that
Yes.
respect.
Right.
And then this one was animated by Kamikaze Duga for the animation studio.
Nice.
Was this episode one of your favorites? I know it's like one of the higher rated ones on IMDb, but I'm wondering in particular if this one was one of your favorites at all.
I did like just being in kind of like the Japanese village and the style of it. I would say it's probably somewhere in the middle for me. It was a nice start to the whole anthology just to get into the mindset, into the mood of, all right, this is going to be like Japanese plus Star Wars. So, yeah, kind of right in the middle for me.
Right. I think for me too, it definitely wasn't one of my favorites. I did appreciate the art in it a lot, but I did like a few of the other episodes a little bit more from there.
Yeah.
And actually from that, going to the second episode, which was called Tatooine Rhapsody.
Yeah.
That one actually was one of my favorites, and like I had said earlier, it was very. We were mentioning the studio earlier. It was very Studio Ghibli-esque, kind of both in its style as well as tone.
Yeah.
And that one was produced by Studio Colorido, and then that one for the English voice speaking cast had I know both of our favorite actors, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Two of both
Did
of
a
our favorite
voice.
actors. Yes.
Oh yeah, well just starting off with him. Bobby Moynihan, who's done
Yeah.
a few voices for Star Wars already, and then Tamara Morrison in here is Boba Fett again.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the only one of the anthology episodes that actually had like an existing Star Wars character in it too.
Correct. Yeah. Actually, I think it might be the only one now that I think about it.
Yeah, Jabba's in it too, so I guess technically two. But I really enjoyed this one. I liked the mix of the music with how it was set in how you call it, Tatooine.
Yeah.
And then this one's also, it says it's set during the Clone Wars, which is interesting considering Boba Fett in it. So
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
yeah, huh? Unless it's like
Oh,
an
you know what it
alternative.
is? That's the beginning. It starts in the Clone Wars, and then that kid grows up. It's years later.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this was one of the ones I watched like a couple months back. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm forgetting some stuff in there.
Yeah.
But what were some of your favorite things about this episode in particular?
Well, the art style, and then the voice acting, which was, like we talked about, two of our favorite actors, and then Tamara Morrison is great also. But also the idea of this Padawan who starts a band. It's just kind of like a fun look into the Star Wars universe and not taking it too seriously, that there's a band and Jabba's going to execute them, but they'll save the thing that saves them is their music. Not the biggest fan of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's lead singing, but I like all of the voice acting in it. So that was the thing that stood out to me, was the art style and the voice acting.
And we also found out that Jabba's a fan. Well, I mean, I guess we already knew that he liked, I guess, quote unquote, Jedi rock, as everybody already knew from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
But going from there, we get to the next episode, which was called The Twins.
Yes.
Which was produced by the animation studio Studio Trigger. And then this one also had some recognizable English voice-speaking cast in Doogie Howser himself, also Spider-Man, Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah.
And then we had... she went to community college, Allison Brie.
Annie's boobs.
Yeah, hashtag. And then this one also had a very kind of unique animation style to it. I remember this one was the closest to, like you'd brought up, those YouTube videos that the Star Wars YouTube had done, where it was like mixing kind of like retelling stories from the films. But that's what I remember about this one, is that it was very, very close to that same visual style. And I almost wonder, I'd have to double check, but I wonder if Studio Trigger did those for the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I want to say I like those style a little bit better, so I don't know if they're 100% the same studio. I just looked it up. They're actually called Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures, if anybody wants to check those out. All of them are great.
Okay.
And this episode in particular, if you remember, was the most hated by our fellow Geek, so to speak, network co-host Robin Schaff from the main Geek, so to speak podcast. They did not like this episode, and I was struggling to understand why. And I think what I came down to was the translation from Japanese to English. There's a little bit of, mouth matching, the mouth movements, where if they're drawing them and they're animating them to be speaking Japanese, it's not going to fit English. So there's going to be a little bit of sync issues, right? And it's the same thing as like if a live action, you're dubbing over it. I think that caused a lot of problems for Schaff in particular, because he didn't like the way that they would speak and tell the way that what they were thinking at all times. And I think a lot of that just comes down to the dub in particular.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of something that you expect from anime. When you watch a lot of anime, that's just the way people talk in a lot of them. So that didn't bother me in particular. I actually really liked the new ideas that they had in this one, where the battle suits can be powered by the kyber crystals, and you can have the two twin star destroyers. There was just, it was a lot of exaggerated and heightened things. That was actually another thing I think Robin Schaff did not like, was them fighting on the wings of the ships, and they were kind of looking at it from a logical standpoint. And I think, in a world where you have force powers and you've got lightsabers, you just have to suspend a lot of your disbelief on certain things. And this one in particular, like I said, it was a heightened version of that. So right. None of that really bothered me at all. Did it bother you the same way it bothered Robin Schaff?
No, because I always presume, like on those big ships, and I want to say that there's precedent for it in different Star Wars TV shows or films, was that the large ships like that had kind of because they have the shields on the ships, that usually that shield would have some kind of an atmosphere in it, as to a certain degree, like of a height, off of the ship. So and that's why, like, the different opinions aside for Rise of Skywalker, that there's, like, when they have the fight on the ship on that didn't bother me either. And this short is actually set in the aftermath of the Battle of Exegol as well too, which is interesting. And we didn't mention it when we talked about The Last Jedi. But we should mention it in this one too, considering the name of our podcast, is that the Holdo Maneuver happens in this short too.
Nice.
They do the Holdo Maneuver in this, and I had brought that up to you off the podcast too. I was like, we did the Last Jedi episode, and we didn't even talk about our namesake in that episode.
I completely glossed over that, but yeah, definitely. Always got to give a shout out to the Holdo Maneuver, because just the visual of it alone, is I think what inspired us to take the name Holdo Maneuver. And it's just as much hate as it gets from a lot of people. I really like just the Holdo Maneuver itself. I saw people online saying it breaks the Star Wars universe. Like, the logic of the Holdo Maneuver completely breaks the Star Wars universe. And I don't see that at all. It makes complete sense to me. And I like it. So there's that.
Agreed. So the next episode, the fourth episode in here, is called The Village Bride. And this one is animated by Kinema Citrus.
Yes.
And this one is about a Jedi on the run, and it takes in the unique customs of a remote village under a threat by a warlord. So this one was very Akira Kurosawa-esque as well.
Yeah.
It also kind of reminded me of another Dave Filoni produced animated series, not the Clone Wars. It was very similar to some episodes that I've seen of Avatar: The Last Airbender so far. I thought I liked this one a lot as well. It was one of my favorites. What did you think about this episode?
Yeah, this one was very enjoyable. I liked, again, just like with the first one, the promise of something Japanese culture in the Star Wars universe. I am always a fan of. As you know, I always like the Japanese version of the posters, the movie posters. And just Star Wars in general has a lot of Japanese influences, from the word Jedi to Darth Vader's armor. A lot of things have like a samurai, and even just kind of a Kurosawa influence over them. So anytime you get actual Japanese looking stuff, villages and things like that, I think it just lends itself perfectly to Star Wars. So this falls right in line with that. And that
For sure.
This one didn't have as notable a English voice cast as some of the other ones.
This one was also a little bit, I think, was set just shortly after kind of episode 3 too, or it's supposed to be within the context of this one. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say about this one. So if you want, we can move on to the fifth episode, which I think may or may not be my favorite episode of all of them.
Actually, right before we go there, Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa, he is the voice of Shang Tsung in a lot of the Mortal Kombat stuff. He was the actual Shang Tsung actor in the first Mortal Kombat movie. He was in this short as Valko. So that was the only person that I recognized.
Oh, nice. Your soul is mine.
Yeah.
But going from there, the next one for the fifth episode, The Ninth Jedi.
Yes.
This one was produced by Production IG for the animation studio. And in this one, it was basically a daughter of a lightsaber smith is pursued by dark forces while on a dangerous mission. So it's basically like a Jedi sets out like basically this message for all of these Jedis to come and get together to get this kyber crystal. What I liked about this one a lot too was Shang-Chi himself was in here as the lightsaber smith, Simu Liu. We also had Hero from Heroes. Masaoka was in here as one of the voices. And let me see.
Also, Kimiko Glenn, who played Penny Parker in Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah. But I really liked this one, too, the animation style. I liked this one. This one was another, I would kind of say, like maybe like a more contemporary anime feel to it than any of the other ones. But I enjoyed this one a lot. And like, what were some of your favorite things about this episode?
Well, the reveal that happens with you think it goes one way and then it turns out to be the other. The actual the visual of who's a bad guy and who's a good guy based on the color of the lightsaber. That idea was just interesting to me, where the lightsaber, like, you don't know until they ignite their lightsaber.
Yeah, that was really cool. I almost wish that was like in more, or if that was like
just the main
what the thing was.
Right. Yeah, that's just a great idea, and it's just a great visual, so that like, I mean, the twist is all based off of that. As soon as the lightsabers are ignited, that's when oh, wait a minute. So I just love that. The exchanges between all the actors, all the characters, I should say, Kimiko Glenn's character, Simu Liu's character, all of them have this like rich history, and you haven't even met them before until this episode. But it feels like they could continue in this world. They could continue with this storyline. So that was my favorite thing about it. It was like it told a whole story in this one short, and then I could continue with it. A lot of these other ones, I'm fine with them being one and dones. I think this one, and there's a couple more that we're going to talk about, I would love to keep on playing with these characters.
Definitely. Yeah, this one was, I would like to see where the story would go after it ends in the short.
Yeah. From the people I've talked to, this is the most popular one. This is the one most people say is their favorite.
Nice. So moving on from there, we go to one that I think some people say is their least favorite, but I actually really liked it.
This one was my favorite.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. It's animated by the studio Science Saru. This one reminded me a lot of Astro Boy.
Yes, very similar art.
And it's a cybernetic boy who dreams, kind of like, it's basically like Jedi Pinocchio. Like a cybernetic boy who dreams of being a Jedi discovers a dangerous truth about his creator. And this one, I like the title too, because I think it's funny, to be one.
Yeah.
And this one, I don't see, Kyle Chandler, from Friday Night Lights, among many other things, was one of the English voice speaking cast in this. And then this one it's kind of set with like the Inquisitors and the Jedi Purge kind of at that time in between episode 3 and 4, kind of similar to like when Rebels was set. And you said this one was one of your favorites. What were some of your favorite things about it?
Well, with me, I'm drawn to a lot of artificial intelligence stories, and WALL-E's my favorite Pixar movie. The feeling that I got from this droid who is trying to be a Jedi, that's something that there's a couple things we haven't seen really in Star Wars. It's force sensitive droids and force sensitive clones, right? And I think we're heading that way with Bad Batch. We don't know about Omega yet, but I think we might be heading that way soon. But I've always been interested by life forms that aren't the same as other ones. What we quote unquote the typical life form having force sensitivity, because force is supposed to be in everything, right? It's supposed to be in all living things, and I think even non-living things as well. So this robot, Toby, which actually the voice actor, he was actually in the first one as well. He played, what's it called? Sorry, I'm scrolling back to the beginning.
Oh, Jaden Waldman.
Yeah, he played the village, like the little boy in the village at the original one. He also played the voice of Toby here. Is great in this role, and it just, I don't know. There's something about inanimate objects, like Toy Story, coming to life and having their own story. That's always intrigued me. So from start to finish, this one had me, and it was one of those ones that got a little dusty in the room at certain times. It was an emotional journey for me, so I was very happy by the end of it.
Yeah, this one I thought was really good as well. I liked the kind of whimsical animation style for it as well.
Great animation style.
And like you said with Wall-E, it did actually kind of have a few similarities to Wall-E as far as like what the main storyline of what they were trying to do on the planet was.
Right.
So that was kind of interesting as well. And I liked the idea of the droid, or I get, is he a droid?
He's a droid.
Yeah, he is a droid. That's powered by a kyber crystal.
Yes.
So that's
so that was all
cool.
great. And that's what's kind of cool about these is we've talked about it on a few of the episodes. They're able to step outside of what we know to be the normal canon for Star Wars and be a little bit exaggerated, be a little bit heightened. So I like that, like being powered by a kyber crystal and being, things we hadn't seen before. Like I said, with the twins, their whole armor being powered by that. And so that was also cool. So I like seeing these type of things.
Definitely. Going from there, going to the 7th episode, which was called The Elder. This one was also animated by Studio Trigger. This one is kind of the earliest timeline-wise set of any of these. This is set centuries after the death of Darth Bane, who people may remember from the Knights of the Old Republic games. And basically the initial extinction of the Sith. This is a Padawan and his master. They basically are going to an outer rim planet to check on this disturbance there. And I thought this one was really interesting. The English cast on here had David Harbour, who everybody may know as Sheriff Hopper from Stranger Things. We also, Jordan Fisher. The name sounds familiar, but I don't know why.
He's involved in a ton of Disney stuff. I saw him on. It was one of those holiday Christmas specials. He was the host, but he's a dancer, singer. He's been in a bunch of things. Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway.
Okay.
He's been in a ton of stuff.
Oh, and then this one also had James Hong in it as the Elder. This dude has been in a ton of stuff.
Legendary actor. He was Poe's dad in Kung Fu Panda.
Yes.
His voice, once you hear it, you know his voice. He's one of the most famous voice actors of all time.
Yeah, and he was awesome in this episode as well. I don't want to give away anything about it, but I thought this episode was really great, and I liked the animation style in this too. That's the other thing I liked about this series too, was just how different each of these episodes was in animation style, even from the same animation studios. Right. Because, like I said, with this one Studio Trigger, they did The Elder, but then we had just talked about it a little while ago. They had also did The Twins, that third episode, which two very, very different visual styles.
Right. Yeah, that's great about this, and getting to see all these back to back is cool as well, because they didn't put them out week to week. They released all of them at once.
Yeah. And then from this one, the next episode after that was called Lop and Ocho, which was animated by Geno Studio.
Yeah.
And this one had I don't recognize any of the English
I'm not
speaking cast on here.
These guys.
But this one was interesting too. I really liked this. This was kind of like a 70s anime
art style was
kind of style
fantastic.
to it.
Yeah. And it was these anthropomorphized animals. That's what was cool about it. Their alien race made them seem like rabbits. So that was really cool.
Almost like what's the character from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Yosagi Yojimbo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what kind of what it reminded me of. And I liked, this was another thing that was very heavily influenced by feudal Japan.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, it had the mix of, it was kind of if you mixed, like you saying that, if you mixed Ninja Turtles with maybe Kill Bill.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, the style is definitely something that stands out. And it felt like a video game to me too. I could see this art style in either a game or just a full-length anime movie. But yeah, this was one of the most visually impressive ones to me. And the story itself was really the story of the family that gets torn apart and this ancient lightsaber. That was all cool. I loved all of that, and then kind of the twist of the family members going against each other.
Yeah, and it wasn't who you would expect to be the family members that would be going against one another.
Right.
And then this one also had kind of a mix of both the hand-drawn animation style, as well as there's a little bit of like CG animation style mixed in there as well. Right. And this one had a time jump in it as well too. Like it starts off with younger characters and jumps ahead about 7 years.
Yeah.
So I liked all that stuff with it as well. And like you're saying, this one again was, I think, right up there with the Ninth Jedi as one of my favorite of the 9 episodes.
Yeah, I really like this one. This one might be, I'd say maybe my third favorite.
Nice. And then the 9th episode, I'm going to let you pronounce because I will probably butcher if I try to say it.
This is a Japanese word. It's akakiri.
Yeah, you definitely said it way better than I would have not said that. This one was animated by Science Saru Animation Studio. They had also done another one of your favorites, the 2B1 episode. And then this one was, it's basically a Jedi returns to his forbidden love to help defend her kingdom from a Sith-like shogun. This one felt, it felt very similar to that Tokyo Godfathers anime film as far as like the animation style. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't seen that.
But then it had Henry Golding in there for the English speaking cast. Mr. Trent Vactor's favorite real world cast member and Mulan actress Jamie Chung. Yeah. Also a actor that we know our friend Schaff will greatly admire, crossing over the star boundary from Trek to Wars with George Takei was in here as well. And
Takei
for me, George Takei.
Yeah.
My bad. But what did you think of this final episode of this first season of it?
This one I wasn't a big fan of until I actually watched. I forgot to mention this earlier. On Disney Plus, they have these short little behind the scenes, extras basically, for each episode. Yep. And the one on this one in particular gave me a deeper understanding and meaning to it. So I actually liked the episode more after I saw the behind the scenes. So I'd highly recommend checking out all of them for each one of these episodes. But this one in particular, kind of the way that color is tied into it, the color red in particular, the dark side, and akakiri itself is a Japanese word that is tied to that as well. So all of those things, I had a deeper understanding and a deeper meaning of it after I watched it. Although, when I originally watched it, I think I was dozing off at the time, so I also was not 100% there when I was watching it originally. But I liked the voice cast. I liked a lot of the connections between the characters and the betrayal that happens and kind of turning on people, turning to the power of the dark side. And that's the age-old thing we've seen throughout Star Wars, the lure of the dark side, the promise of the dark side, what you can gain if you turn to the dark side. So I liked all of that stuff, just pure Star Wars there.
Yeah, I enjoyed that as well. This one I think would rank a little bit lower as far as like all 9 of them, but I did like that kind of bit of the story with like the dark side and light side, and how it was kind of a very similar Anakin Emperor kind of manipulation to it. But yeah, that's the full first season of Star Wars Vision anthology series. I actually also would recommend, if you want to know more about the production process of what went into creating this series, I just recently listened to this episode of another podcast that I also suggested to Vactor to listen to. Is called Crossing the 180. And had the Star Wars Vision's executive producer and Lucasfilm VP of franchise production, Jacqui Lopez, on it. And it was a really cool episode of her talking about how basically she went from being a production assistant, which like I've done myself on many things, and worked her way kind of up through the Lucasfilm ladder up until where she is now and what she's worked on there. So I would highly suggest checking that out if you are interested in more stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
I also compiled a playlist, an Apple playlist of all of the Star Wars Visions albums into one playlist because they were all separated by each episode. So if you want to find that all in one place, I'll put a link for that in our show notes too for people to check out.
Yeah.
And then you can find the show on social media at Twitter. We're at HoldoPod, also on Instagram at HoldoPod, also on Facebook at HoldoPod. Then individually, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Marc Vibbert, MarcVibbert. And then where can they find you on social media, Vactor?
I'm at Vactor, my last name Vactor. And also want to give a shout out to our other Geek So to Speak network podcasts. I'm doing a Star Wars podcast with Mr. Vibbert, as you're listening to right now. I'm doing a video game podcast with Wonder Rob and also Jeff W., my co-host on Seasons Change. But we're doing a video game podcast called Sandbox Gamers. I'm doing a Star Trek podcast with Mr. Shaw from Geek So to Speak. And we're actually going to be talking all about Picard Season 2 coming up tomorrow. So check out those other shows as well.
And then if you want to email us, you can email us at holdopod@gmail.com. And then for all things Geek So to Speak, just go to geeksotospeak.com and you'll have stuff there, including the rest of the podcast network, like Justin brought up, with the main podcast, Geek So to Speak, that has Rob and Schaff on it, and our weekly segments, your Trek podcast, like you said, Treknological, and then Sandbox Gamers. But that's it for this week, my friends. And what do we always say, Vactor?
Thank the maker.
Cue the Cantina music.